So good afternoon, everybody. As he said, my name is Cameron. We're here to talk about antibiotic-resistant bacteria, not just in our bayous, but really in our backyards as Louisiana residents. So first off, antibiotic-resistant bacteria, what's really the risk behind them? The CDC reports annually roughly about 2 million infections with these bacteria resulting in illness, and roughly about 23,000 of those end up becoming fatal. As far as how these bacteria have come about and why it's such a problem now, the mechanism is a very simple stage of natural selection, basically. Whenever there's one or two resistant bacteria in a setting and antibiotics are introduced to that system, all of the susceptible bacteria are wiped out, and next thing, all we have is these quote-unquote superbugs that are resistant to the bacteria, to the antibiotic that we're just presented with, which are then allowed to grow and completely populate the area. The main reason this is a concern for Southeast Louisiana and our bayous is because of this point right here, the fact that once we get past a certain point going down the bayou systems, there becomes to be more and more of a lack of state-run sewage and proper filtration of the water that goes into the bayous. So to assess the magnitude of this problem, we broke it down into 6 simple steps, starting with step 1, which was the collection of our water samples. We chose 2 sites, one down Bayou Terrebonne in Chauvin, Louisiana, and then one down Bayou Lafourche in Port Fouchon, pretty close to the coast, just to get the magnitude of that lack of sewage treatment and how it could affect these waters. We analyzed it chemically, but unfortunately no significant trends could be found, just that the environment was shown to actually be very capable of supporting this kind of bacterial life and the load that would be needed to bring about such resistance. Next, we tried to quantify the amount of bacteria that were actually in each milliliter of water. And these numbers, as you can see, this red line is the EPA's quote-unquote recreational standard, or the number that basically that we should have the bacterial quantification underneath that for it to be considered recreational waters. That includes fishing, boating, swimming, all the things that we love to do down these bayous every day. Then from after we did all this quantification to figure out how much bacteria was actually in the water itself, it was isolated and identified using different biochemical tests. And we've mainly singled out the kind of good gut bacteria that everybody associates with, being E. coli, Klebsiella, Enterobacter, and a handful of others. After those were isolated, we used these antibiotic disc tests to check for their resistance to 6 very common clinical antibiotics. And as you can see here, each of these yellow boxes indicates that the bacteria was what was known as intermediately resistant to the antibiotic, meaning that it was still killed by the antibiotic but showed some fight back against it. And then in the red boxes we see bacteria that were completely resistant to the antibiotic presented, meaning that it basically had no effect on the bacteria, and if this antibiotic was to be used in a clinical setting, it would have no effect on the bacteria that was being treated. From there, we isolated the DNA and analyzed it and found 4 different bacterial resistance genes free-floating in the water that could be picked up by other bacteria. The main reason this is of concern to us is just the fact that 15 to 20% of Louisiana's residents are employed by this water community, and this is the water that our families and loved ones are in every single day. This is a very possible risk that could be facing all of us and could only get worse in the future. So, thank you.